Okay, if anybody is out there, um, give me a sign. Let me know. I'm not sure how to see how many people may be watching or looking. Um, but I hope you can hear me and see me. And I'll start when I see a few people coming on. Hey, you can hear me, Wendy? And see me okay? Is everything good? Ah, cracking. Good news. Okay, well, there is quite a lag between, or latency between the two from what I'm saying and what you're replying. So, as long as you're seeing me and hearing me, that's good. Let's just hope a few more people, or this could be a very private demonstration for yourself only. I hope you're well this morning. And give it a few more minutes anyway. Ah, good. Good morning, Lynn. Nice you could join us. It says 3 are watching. Well, there's 2 of you that I can see, but where do I find out who's watching then? Where can I see that? I'm looking. No, I can't see where it tells me how many are actually watching. There must be somewhere and I'm just not seeing it. I'm trying to touch too much in case I move something and change something. Now, does that tell me? Oh, participants. There you go. 1, 2. Oh, well, I'm a participant, so I guess that's what you're seeing. Yeah, no, that's good. We're good. And Catherine's out in the garden and leaving me to my own devices in here. And the dogs did want to be a part of it, but I've excluded those from the room. So yeah, I hope. Top right of screen says 5, says Lynn. Okay. I'm not sure where the 5 are. Still, I do hope that we do get a few, and hopefully that if you are watching or you do come on board to watch, then maybe you would just sort of sign in, let me know that you're here and enjoying this or whatever. It is, I've got to say, a very, very first attempt at this publicly. I've done one so far for my personal patron group, but I haven't actually done any publicly on YouTube, so this is an absolute first, and I hope that it doesn't go bad. Not the tech is all pretty much sorted out. I think it's just if I mess up this painting. I'm more worried about the painting going wrong than I am the tech, but there you go. All right, so we are going to start looking at this image. You can see the image in the top right, and it's a lovely little section of Morston Key, and in the background you can't quite see. You need to go up another 50 yards and look down around the bend in that river, and you'll be looking towards the church at Blakeney, all on the North Norfolk coast. It's a stunning area, the whole of that coastline, all the way from Hunstanton all the way through to I think it's Yarmouth or somewhere around there. It's all great places. Hi Terry, hi Nicola, sorry got that wrong way round. Hi Nicola, nice to see you. And EY, yeah, nice to see you, thank you very much. All right, this is cracking. We have people coming on, that's good. So are we ready? Are we gone 10:30, so maybe think Quay should be, oh dear, Yeah, you're right, Nicola. What a fool. What a simp. I think I must have been looking at streaming keys. Sorry, guys. Big idiotic title. Hoo-ha. Key should be Quay and not as I put it. I won't make that mistake again. Okay, so what I am doing is I've got this taped up in my normal fashion. This is a piece of paper that is primarily 11 inches by 15 inches, which is considered quarter imperial size. And what I do is I then put an inch border tape around. I would like to actually put just a ½ inch round, but every time I put a piece of tape on, it sort of bows and bends. You never get a nice clean edge, nice straight edge. So in deference to that, I put in 1 inch tape, and then I know I've got a pretty straight edge to it. One thing I also do to stop bleeds now, which is on advice from a friend as well, is that I put these little corner tabs on. It stops any encroachment of pigment coming in down the joints here, which is a worthwhile thing. Okay, yeah, I've not been seal watching there. I know some people. I've got a student that goes there a lot as well, and they love seal watching and walking out to the Blakeney Point, which is apparently so. I've never done that walk, but one day I will. I'm going to do that. Right, okay, so that's all that part done. I'm sorry you can't actually see my palette, but it's just the angle that the camera and the lead that I need to get up to my iPhone so that I can film this. So you can see the mixes, but you can't see the colors I'm dipping into. I do apologize for that. Hope it doesn't detract too much from what's going on. So where do we go? This is 300-pound Saunders Waterford rough paper. Now I use 300 predominantly because it's a high quality, heavy grade paper, and during the course of this demo I will try and talk about qualities of paper and one or two other things. And indeed, if you figure that I haven't said something, go in the comments section, write it out, and let me know any questions you got. Please put them in the comments section. I may not spot them straight away, but as soon as I do, I'll talk about them and hopefully answer your query. So let's get started. First things first, let's get in the horizon line. It's going to be quite a high one in this image, and make sure it's straight. The last thing you want to do is to have a wonky horizon. Try and get it straight if you can. You can correct it in the painting stage, it's not a big deal. But my sky is just a lovely morning sky, so it's not going to be too much in terms of Australia. Okay, Lynn. Okay, that's cool. Where did I say Australia? Oh, I don't know. I might have done. North Yorkshire. I need to get up there more as well. All right. So I'm going to put in a tree line and use a minimum of a 2B lead. Never sort of come down to the Bs or anything else harder, because it will or could damage the paper. It's the last thing you want to do. I seem to have frozen. Have I frozen? Ooh, that's not good. I seem to have frozen. I hope that's not the case. Can anyone hear what I'm saying? Because I seem to have lost something on here. Okay. Am I still live with everybody? I can't tell because I had a bit of a technical hitch then, and I'm not quite sure what's gone on. And apparently my connection to my live stream has disappeared. So can you all see and hear me? Right, well I'm trying, I don't know what happened there, but I'm going to carry on as though, and I hope you can. So my feed here off the phone seemed to have died for some reason, and I don't know why. But if you are still listening to this, please just give me a quick indication on the chat, and that'll be fantastic. Just don't know why it says I can't connect to my chat, but if you are there, please let me know. Alright, so I'm going to carry on and assume that you're there. So we are going to put in our next layer of the horizon line coming down from there. There is a nice bank working through, and that goes down. It's in several layers, this area. There's lots of little creeks and parts to this. So then we come in with the bank where the river will go round, and you got a nice edge to it, and then the water's quite high, so we're going to sort of suggest the edge there, and then the water will come around this way, and then you've got a reflection through there somewhere. Can you all hear me? Can anyone see me or hear me? Because I'm getting nothing back on the feed, so I don't know why that is. A little bit concerned about it. Apparently there are no participants now. This is not doing too well at the moment. Okay, well I had to refresh my page. I do apologize about that. So you can hear and see me. Just give me one more sign, Wendy, that you're okay and you're back with it, and I'll just press on. I don't know, this is, as I say, it's a bit of a trial, people, so if it does go mess up, then I apologize, and I'll think of another solution, but hopefully it won't. Right, I don't know what that is. I want that out of the way. 10:41, 10:42. Wendy, yes, can see and hear. Nicola, yeah, okay. It's okay, good, thank you. Okay, we seem to be back on. I do not know what happened, whether something on my end timed out. So bear with me on this. As I get more used to doing this sort of thing, then of course it will get somewhat easier. So I'm just indicating a few of these posts, not that many. I don't want to put too many in. I don't want to commit myself, but I'm just simply putting a few through. And then I want to put the boats. Now they must be sitting in the water, of course. And it's going to come through just below the head there. So I'm going to put a line in that's slightly coming down and around like so as the edge of the water. And now I'm going to put my first boat in, and this is quite a nice top side. I've got lots of messages coming in, but they're not the streaming ones, and almost like a little figure of eight shape, the boat down, around, and a little loop like so. And then they've got a very scooped out stern, and that comes up to the part here, and then that comes around like so. And really that's all there is to that boat. It's got a shape water line bar, or whatever you call that. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but they've got a little shape there. And we've got another boat laying off to one side behind that, so we're going to put that in, trying to see if that's the front or the back. It's quite a wide one actually, so I'm going to put that in there and just put in what I would think is a standard stern. It may be quite wrong, I don't know, but that's what I'm going to go with and leave it in that fashion. Again, it's got a little bit of a canopy type thing on the top, which I'll stick on like so. It doesn't have to be a greatly detailed drawing. You just really want to get the points home so you can carry on. So we've got our second boat done, and now we're going to go in with another one, which is just looking at the heights of these. It's probably a little bit higher than I've got it there, so let's just put in a bit more there, and the side, and let that sit in the water, almost rounded like so, with the front in that fashion. But then you've got the reflection, which will come out and around and something like that. So it's just little indications. The water is quite rippled here, so you're not going to have a fantastically high, because there is a stream of water through this way, whether it's the flow, or I think it's actually the ebbing flow of the water. There's a little bit of a tidal run, so you're losing a lot of color in terms of reflective surface in the water through this area here. Nice and flat here, but it's lost out through here. Okay, so we're going to move on. There are cars in the car park here. I'm not proposing to put any of those in. There's no real need to, but I will put in a couple of the timber barriers or groins that are sort of down the side here, and keeping everything in place, and that will give that finish off. Just to this side there is a harbour master's office or something of that nature, some sort of tower thing. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm just going to put one or two bits in there. There is a second line of hill through here. There's quite a few layers. There's like a bank through there with some trees and stuff through that way like that. Now that part pretty much is done, and I'm going to come into the boat here. This is the boat here, this one in the foreground, and I'm just going to look at it in terms of roughly where it is. It's quite close to this one. We're going to start it somewhere about there, and just going to quickly just suggest the shape in like that, and then adjust my marks accordingly. So there's the stern, roughly where I want it to be, and I'm going to put quite a nice wide shape like that. It might need some adjustment, but don't worry too much about it. And then that will come down there and into the center, almost the center of the stern. So that may need to come a little further this way like that. Just checking my marks, checking my drawing. and then looking at that, the bow coming down to the waterline and the shape of this here. So let's bring that round, check how deep that is. And I have lost my eraser, so what have I done with that one? Sorry about that. Okay, one eraser just to correct a few drawing mistakes before I go on. Okay, so take that out from there and soften some of these pencil marks. Don't need all of them in, they will detract. Just take a little bit off. I don't always take pencil marks out, but if they get a little heavy compared to the rest of it, you can do that. It's not a big deal. Now I think this boat could do with being just a little longer, and so I'm going to put that like so, and that coming down like that. I think that will help no end. And then change the front of the bow to about there, let that come down. I think that works. And then the front, and that comes down into the bow like so. Alright, and then you've got the reflection. I'm just going to suggest the reflection. I don't want to put too much in. There's a nice point of light right there, which I want to try and focus on later on. It may be that I use some gouache later on to come back with that, or I may just get away with leaving the white paper. But certainly places like here on the top edge of the boat, there's a nice point of light too, catching that morning sun. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to put in the other two boats. They're much smaller, of course, and they will just sit to one side, one, and then I'm going to put the other one there. Just move it a little bit. Just sitting quite dark, and just let that run off to the and bring that one up. This one actually needs to come up a little higher, so let's just do that, and it's slightly turned so you see a little bit of the front bow like so, and then it comes down at a slightly more acute angle, a little bit more foreshortened, and across the back like so, and then you've got the outboard sitting on the back, and whatever that is sitting up in the back. And then we've got a, what I have forgotten to do is this, so let's just get that needs straightening up a bit. And then I've got the nice rudder that sits up like so, and then I believe that's called the tiller or whatever whatever it's called, it's there, and hopefully I don't get slammed for getting that too wrong. There you go, and we've got that sort of shape going on, and that allows us then to put in the front of this boat coming down and the reflection that is in the water here. I know it misses this one on my drawing. I'm not overly worried about that. It would have been great to have put it in closer to this, but you know what the heck, let's go and do that. Just that, let's take that out, change of mind, and let's bring this down a little bit to a much closer point to this boat here, and start it again and put that shape in. And now we will put in our reflective surface. Should have done this start off just to check it, but better late than never. And allow that to come through like so. And then the reason I wanted to do that is because this rudder section here has got a lovely blue, and that will stand out nicely against the warm darks in this reflection of the boat in this one. So I think it was worth just changing that. And let's put back the outboard. Let's just check the shape of this because the boat is slightly on the turn, like so. And now let's go back in and put this one in. I'm going to bring it back a little bit on this one because it's getting dangerously close to the edge of the paper and I don't want to do that. Now I haven't had any chats from anybody for a little while, so I hope the pulse of life is still with you all out there watching this, and that I'm not talking to myself. That would be awful. Right, so there's a little line going into the water there, and that will be reflected out to somewhere like that. This too will have a line which we will put in, and again it will come back like that. Still here, good. Lynn, thank you, that's good. Okay, is it okay? Is it coming across all right? Because I'm just assuming that it is. This boat I've made a little shorter than maybe it should be, but I'm not too worried about it. This is they are different sizes, all these little craft, so hopefully that will work. All right, now there are a few lines here which I'm not really going to bother putting in, and I will put in a little bit of muddy shore, and that will help just to anchor this picture and give it a little bit. I'm going to bring it all the way through here. You can't quite see it, but it is going to allow me to express one or two little lines of dark just to anchor this whole thing in. There is a buoy here which I'm going to slightly move. I'm going to put it in somewhere like that and let that sit there, and again it will have a reflection. Now I think we're good to go. Alright, so the drawing is done. Put everything like that out the way, and I'm going to choose my colors, and I'm going to go in with a fairly thick brush, and the first brush I'm going to be picking up is going to be this Escoda. Getting quite used to it. It's I believe them to be a synthetic head, and they're like a squirrel mop, so it does hold a volume of water which is cracking. And for this color I'm going to be using some cerulean blue. I'm going to mix that in first, and always try and mix enough up. We are all too often leaving not enough. We want a big wash and we never give ourselves enough color mix, and when you go back in, I'm going to put some cobalt to that too, not too much. I'm going to leave that mix there, and I'm going to come in with a little bit more of the cerulean, and I'm going to add into that some vermilion. And my vermilion is a bit dirty, so I'm going to come back in there. I don't want to mess it up. So that gives me quite a dirty mix. I didn't want that to happen. All right, let's come in with some cerulean, and this time actually I'm going to mix in some Indian yellow to that, and not the blue. The blue was too corrupting. There we go. That will give us a lovely little softening down to the edge of the tree line. So clean the brush, got one water which is clean, one which is dirty, and I'm going to go in now. I'm not pre-wetting the paper. I like to work with the bead as it comes down the paper, and I keep the bead alive. So from that point of view, let's just come in across the top with our blue. It may look strong compared to that is on the photograph, but I'm not overly worried because it will dry that much lighter. So I'm going to come back in now, pick some fresh clean water up, a bit of the vermilion, a bit of the Indian yellow, and let's just come in with that lovely beautiful softness into the trees as it comes down, this lovely morning glow. Now I will come back into that tree line later on with another value, but for the moment I'm going to bring this all the way down through. And now I don't mind if I mix the orange at this point with the blue, not a problem with that. In fact, I'm going to mix a little bit more of all of it, so you get this quite dirty earthy green. I'm going to bring that down, and I'm continuing my bead. I'm not too worried about what is happening with, I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm not too worried about what's happening here with the color, because I will add further colors to it. but I just want to come down, and I can come all the way down through here. This is not a problem, a bit more water would help, and just take it all the way down. Now if you want to protect your boats, and I'm going to try and do that, I want to protect the boat, and I want to go around some of their shapes, and I also, as a hair, I hate hairs, block that out, there you go. So come around the boat shape, take it along your water line, because I don't want to encroach over the water line until the bead is still wet there. So I will come into it, but not immediately. And I'm just going to come around and cut around these boat shapes. The one up there, take that all the way through, down, like so. And we've got a nice bleed up through here, down and around and off to the edge. There we go. That sorts that out quite nicely. And now then, the water, I'm going to come back in, I'm going to clean the palette out. A bit fresh water. This is not, it's, you've got to worry about it a little bit, because if you want to carry on, you can't allow it to dry up. So I'm going to come in here with the blue, but I'm putting in some transparent orange now. I'm just going to run that into here, let that pick up on there. I'm not too worried about what's going on with that. I'm going to add in a little bit of orange way off there, just to lighten that through there. I like the idea of that picking up while we've still got paper that's damp. Take it all the way through and let that do its own thing. All right. It's going to come up with some different marks and shapes and stuff, bleeds and things, but don't worry too much about it at this stage, because they will be, you will be going over them, so it's not a great big worry. Coming in with some reds and the orange and the green, just to come in with a fairly warmish color into the edge of this bank before I stop short of the water, and leave it just about there. And shape that up a little while from now, but that almost like a first pass in a sense. Clean out the brush, pick up some fresh water, some fresh color, and keep your trays a little bit clean. And I'm going to come in with, tap that off, want some nice clean yellow, some clean Indian yellow, and a bit of red into there, not probably that much. And just come in through here with the water and that lovely glow of pink from the sunrise as it is, and then it will soften and leave that, because it doesn't, that didn't, I was hoping to have left that, just try and lift a little bit out, not too much. But then I want to come in with more cerulean blue, but some of my violet, and I love this combination of the ultramarine violet in the water and the cerulean blue, and it's going to be a very pale soft mix. And I'm not too worried about the boat then, but I don't want to completely mess it up. Bit of cobalt into that, bit more of the picked up a bit of indigo then, which I didn't want. Trouble is, big old brush, and it sits right next to the indigo, and I use indigo a lot, so it does tend to pick it up. Okay, just bringing that in and around here and taking it down through these boats. A little bit of variation in the blues and the lights, but I want to come back in with some of these pinks and just suggest the warmth returning back. But I want to protect that tiller, well, not so much the tiller arm, but certainly all of this area here where I want it to remain quite bluish further on. So I'm going to put in some of the warmth into this. I'm working quite fast because I don't want to have, in fact I can come all the way through those. Why I'm being so sparing, I don't need to be. Just take them all the way through, because any area that is somewhat darker, unless you feel it's going to be influenced by the color that you're putting on, then just go straight through. There's no need to worry. So I'm going to come all the way through there and not worry about it at all, and it will come down into this mud area at the bottom, and it will dry up and do its own thing. I'm going to put in some blue through here and let that influence the very bottom edge, and before this dries up here, I'm going to come back in with some warmth and glow from the morning light, like so. Come all the way through my little buoy in the water, it's not a problem. And at the end of the day, this is going to have to dry up. And guess what I've forgotten to bring in from the outside? I've forgotten to bring the hairdryer. So there might be a 2-minute pause while I just leave the building and go and grab the hairdryer from my studio. But I think pretty much that's there, so bear with me. I'm just going to go and grab the hairdryer and come shooting back in, and yeah, go and make a quick cup of coffee or tea while we're doing that. All the best for the minute. Always try and get prepared, huh? Alright, let's just see if we can get this one plugged in somewhere. Right, I don't know how many people that are watching at the moment. Yeah, finally. Now I'm watching. Oh, that's cool. Alright, just going to quickly dry this off. I can never get that darn thing going, and I can never seem to stop it, but there you go, we are pretty much there on it now. Well, it's good to know that a 9 are watching. I don't know who the 9 are, but if you want to say hi on the chat, please go ahead and do so. It'd be nice to know who's on the sidelines having a look-see at this. Right, I've got several other brush options now, and I'm going to come down on the size of brush, and I just want to start looking at this line of trees through here. And I'm going to go in firstly with a fairly large number something. I think it's about a number 10 or 11. Come on out, you can't come and enjoy it. No, no, out. Sorry, it's my dog decided that the door was open, so Dad was going to take him for a ball throw. Out, there you go, lad. Go on. There you go. Communication error. All right, so let's carry on. So this is about a number 10 or 11, 12, something of that nature. And I'm going to clean off my palettes and thank heaven for the mute button. Ooh, okay. Nicola, I don't know, have I got it on, have I got you guys on mute? Is that what it is? I don't know. Is that why I'm not seeing everybody? Anyway, yes, right, let's carry on. I will get to the bottom of this tech. I've come kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Okay, so let's look at our next color batch. It's going to be quite a violet color. I'm using the ultramarine violet initially, but I want to tap in a little bit more red into that, making it a little warmer. But I'm also going to use a bit of transparent orange just to shift it, and that could be a little too far. Somewhere there, more on the bluish side, but with that hint of warmth in there. I'm going to just test it on there, and I think that's a little too warm, so I'm going to come in with a bit more of the ultramarine violet. Just test it again. I think we're somewhere about right. So, and I don't want it too strong, so I'm going to come in. I'm going to be fairly quickly with this because it doesn't want to be too detailed. You just want to set up this the appearance of, you know, the bushes and the shrubs in the background. Now keep the amount of color going fairly consistently because it will start running out your brush, and as it goes from there to there, it of course will get lighter, and that's not necessarily what you want to happen. So I'm just going to keep on going very, very quickly. There's a nice straight edge through there with a open form tree or two over this side, and leave it quite like that. Now as this comes down, there's going to be a touch more cobalt to that, not too much, because there is a lovely morning mist that runs through this place, and I'm going to run it quickly all the way through like so. But then I'm going to use a lot of water in the brush, and I'm going to allow it to just gently take some of that off, because I want to give the suggestion that there is a morning mist right down on the edge of that next piece of ground. So I'm lifting, basically I'm using the water just to lift the value. Doesn't matter that I take it down through what will become the next layer of ground. I want to make sure that this also doesn't set up a risky area that can bleed back and cause me one or two issues. So I'm just reinforcing that, a bit like a mini wash in a sense, and let that come all the way down. I don't really want a hard straight line to dry up, so I'm just teasing that dampness in and out of the area to give the appearance of this lightness that runs through. And of course, by tapping away in this fashion, you're getting undulations that ordinarily would sort of translate into different trees, different bits of foliage that you can see that are somewhat more pronounced than others. And yeah, I think you get the idea. Now don't forget, if you've got any questions, the hairdryer. Yeah, cheers. I tell you what, I'm terrible with that hairdryer. I never get it turned on, and I sometimes get it too close to the painting, and that's a real big problem. You don't really want it too close to the painting. All right, I'm going to let that settle down before I put the next layer in. So I'm going to just come in with the dark here. That's bled quite heavily over there. Not too worried about it. It would have been nice not to have happened, but it's not the end of the world. And I'm just going to come in with a strong dark mix. Now my favorite strong dark mixes normally involve indigo, and depends whether I want it to be cooler or warmer. I'll either use transparent orange or I might use the Indian red, depending which way I want to go. So for this one I want it to be quite lively, so I'm putting a lot of the blue in, but then I'm going to come in with a transparent orange, and that makes it a really gungy or grungy dark color, and I can put that right the way through here like that. And now if I want that to bleed and show up, I can actually go in with the orange now, put a little tap of ultramarine to that, maybe even a bit of yellow, make it slightly greener, something like that, and just put that on top and let that become the top of that mound, like so, and just let it come all the way down, creating the top of that bank. We will come in a bit darker, but I think that will work for now. And that just gives us a nice reference point, because we can bring the rest of this in later on. While we've still got some of this, let's just pick out some of the edges to this boat. Let's come all the way down to the bank here and the water line, okay, to the back and round the edge of that boat through this area here, and just suggest the bank in that distance. And I'm going to take it all the way up through there and just let it break off to become completely not quite sure what's going on with it. We can leave it like that for now. We don't need to worry too much. There will be more information going into that. All right, so not referring to the hairdryer. No, referring to hairdryer. Okay, sorry Lynn. Right, let's just look at this now. This is probably dried up sufficiently to come back in, and I want to put a weakish orangey solution. That might sound a little heavy so far off, but there's quite a yellowish but very pale look. So I'm going to come in with that next. I'm going to come in along this bank here and suggest that dark bank in there. And I'm going to come in with some of our darker color, but not as strong a value, so there's a lot more water with it, like so. Something of that nature is fine, and by adding the extra water in, you're going to diffuse the concentration of the pigment. And I'm going to just suggest a little reminder myself that there is a little tree structure there which we will come in and reinforce further on. And then we come down into a bit of just a little bit of violet going in there, just some neat violet to drop into what is a car park of sorts, which will come down and into this green here. Not too worried if it bleeds and messes up. Take it all the way through if you're not too sure. It's just that little bit of a difference between the two, but there will be more information added. What I can't quite see is what's going on here. I think that there is another bank that is dark in here, but then there are some little areas of pylons which are lighter. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to put them the other way around. I'm going to suggest them and put them in to this bank, take it all the way through and up to there, down and around this boat, and isolate that. Then take the whole of this off up the side here. Now I'm not worried if you leave the odd bit of white paper or the underpainting, that's not a problem at all. there are one or two areas of other boats that are just popping into view. So I'm going to suggest that there, just leave that little bit of area and colour that up later and take that all the way through. Now then, I'm going to add some orange into the top of this. Now I want to put that in, and it will lift and warm as that comes through, like so. Take it all the way down and just leave that to set up, I think, now, and come back to it in a little while. I'm going to come into this water now, and this has dried up quite nicely, but I wanted to put in some warmer values. So I'm going to come in with the orange, bit of red to that, and I'm just going to come in and put a few extra warm colors in a simple wash through here, and they will culminate into the bottom of the picture. And I want to put in, take that out from it, come in with some nice violet colors and a bit of ultramarine blue pure, so we have that benefit. And I want to see if I can't suggest the sort of water that's running through. That could be a bit more cerulean in that, if I'm honest with you. So cerulean and a bit of ultramarine, just mixing the two up together, and let that run all the way through. And I'm using some water to dampen off. I don't want everything hard edged. I'm just trying to suggest that there is water flow, maybe from off of there too into that area, but certainly all the way through here. Pick a bit more up and make it a little bit wider apart as you come closer to yourself, so you can see that there is a definite eddy of current working through. And then the blue that you put on to begin with will of course act as the underpainting and the light areas between, and it will be the same through this as well. And take it all the way into the front of the boat. A bit more of the violet and a bit more of the cerulean, but certainly more violet. It's sort of changing as it comes closer to me. So I'm just going to bring in one or two taps of stronger pigment in one or two places that are suggesting that there is the odd little wavelet, as it were, coming through. Don't want them too hard, so by all means have the clean water standing by to one side, so that you can just pop in other bits of information. And you're using these lines also as directional lines. You know, you're creating the sense of this water that's running down through, and it is running at a pace. This whole river almost empties out to a trickle at low tide, goes all the way out through to Blakeney and all the way out to the sea, and even Blakeney becomes quite isolated, high and dry, with the amount of mud that is then showing at low tide. You can also indicate one or two taps down through here, which sort of suggests that there is movement in the water low down. And that, I'm not going to do too much. I want to sort of lose some of this damp edge here, so I'm going to put in one or two areas, and it's a little bit too wet. Some arguably could have waited for that to have lost some of its dampness, but I don't think we've lost the plot. Just going to put and suggest one or two areas that are going to make it nice and warm before we come back in and put the reflections in. So just literally using the background color as the light, and then of course you've got these shadow areas that I'm putting in right now, and they will come all the way through and all the way up to the new reflection from the boat when we get there. Okay, so hopefully that gives some indication. I'm just going to put in one or two areas and suggest that it's not just going up there and around, it's coming up and past this boat. So one or two little taps just to suggest that. dry it off the brush and just make a few of them sort of become less prominent. Just more refined little marks, just careful marks. And take them as far as you want this way, as you feel you need to. And I actually think that I'm going to put in a little bit of the orange into here and let that run through as sort of a reflection from the bank that you can see. But they are lifted. There are sort of areas are corresponding to the reflection, so I'm going to literally lift and dab and lift a couple out, just dab that off, and I'll come back and play with that in a little while. Alright, so we're getting pretty much there and setting up, and we're going to start looking at the boats, and we're going to start looking at closing the detail down on this now. So yeah, okay, well, I'm assuming everybody's seeing this and enjoying what is happening and getting something from it. And if you are and you want to ask something, then don't hesitate. I'll answer it if I can, of course. Right, the boats are quite cool, and the ones furthest away tend to have a little bit more cerulean to them. I'm going to touch the cerulean, but I'm going to put quite a bit of ultramarine in, and I'm just going to come in with a value that is quite a nice color. I think a little bit more ultramarine into that mix. So, and it's just the first coat, okay? It's not the end of the story with regards to this. So we're going to put that in like so, and we're going to put the one in on this side. Need to take that all the way up to that color and all the way through here and on the stern like that. Good, thanks Nicholas. And this one here we're going to put in as well, and I did save a boat there somewhere where it's gone. Maybe we'll put it in there. Hopefully we can suggest that's a boat further in, and there's perhaps something over the back there, which there are 2 or 3 boats I've actually missed. I could put them in with a bit of grass later, but I think we just wanted to get the essence of this picture. I'm going to come in with a bit of cobalt now and a bit of the ultramarine blue mix, and I'm just going to come in with a cooler blue, so a warmer blue, not a cooler blue, a warmer blue that suggests the boat here, and I'm going to come all the way down around to the waterline and then over the back, and also not forgetting this part here on the rudder and the shape like so. Okay, now I'm going to put a grungier, darker mix. I'm going to put a little bit of indigo to one side, just take some, put some into the edge of this color blue, and just come in and just add in a deeper, darker value on the rear of this boat like that. And then I'm going to come in with the same sort of value that will become and form the reflective area in the sea or in the water, and I'm going to take that all the way out like so. Lynn, what paints are you using? Apologies if you have already told us. No, I haven't actually. Thanks for bringing it up. I use a mix of Schminker, which is the Horidium, whatever you call that, however you work that. I use those from Schminker mainly, but I also have a number of Daniel Smith's watercolors as well. I like the two, and I sort of have a variety. I don't think I sort of stick to any one for exclusivity, but I do like to have several at my disposal. This is just the first coat, by the way, of this reflection, adding a little bit more dark blues in, because the reflective surface normally works that it creates, if you've got something quite dark, it reflects a bit lighter, and if it's quite light, it reflects a little darker. So what it actually does is shuts down the values, the degree of contrast between the two. So it's worth noting that if you look at objects that are being reflected in bodies of water, just look at it and see if it appears darker or lighter than the subject being reflected, and you'll get quite a noticeable differential between the two. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bring in a little bit of dark as this comes down, and I want to soften the transition here like so, and I want to put in a bit more dark just around here, because there is the area where the boat is coming down and around to meet the water. So this is going to get a bit stronger in here and into there as well, and hopefully that works quite nicely. There you go. We can play around with any amounts of this, just softening off edges, taking lines down, making a bit more of significance where we need or feel the need to do so. So I want to come in here and I want to wet this up a little bit, and I want to add in a bit of orangey colour into this blue, maybe a little bit more red than orange, just to suggest the warmth catching on the front of the bow like so. I don't want it to be a heavy dark mark, so I'm going to take some of that and just lift some of that pigment out, and hopefully it will settle down further on. And I can actually come back in and add this blue quite while this is all wet, and just make that sort of soften off and become a subtle blend, and just lift a bit out on the edge here and take that all the way down to the bottom, and that works. I think that works anyway. Now I'm going to put in a bit more of the blue with a touch of cerulean. I just want to touch the edge of this band here, and I'm using the same brush, although one could quite happily use a, oh, I did that wrong, quickly take that out. Need to concentrate more. I'm just going to lift this problem out here, just scratching off gently, not overdoing it, but I did take that line wrong. I misread my drawing. Let that dry up for a minute and come back into that very shortly. Just going to suggest a little bit of warmth off here at the beginning of this reflection, and leave it as the same. And now I'm going to come back into these boats. They're quite dark, but they're quite red, so I'm going to actually add some red, but I'm going to use quite a bit of Indian red to dull the red down. You don't, although you know they're red, you don't need to make them so strong in that value. So let's just put in a nice degraded red color that you're going to go over, so not worrying about that too much, just a nice basic red color, and the reflection is going to be that much darker, so don't worry about trying to do that in a minute. But you can actually put a little bit of orangey color and brighter red in the back of that one, and if you wish to, and you can see enough of it in your drawing, just in the back of that one. That will lift the light later on. And we're going to leave these to dry out and settle down, and we're going to come back in with a little bit of vermilion and a bit of Indian red to corrupt it one more time. And I want to put in the band that's around the shape of this boat here and off to one side, and once more on this boat through here and over the back. And there is that I don't know what we said that was, but some sort of cuddy on the front of this boat like so, and it doesn't need any more. Now the red on here is the same red if you got up close, but because of the acute angle to the sun in the morning, it appears anything but red. You can see a little bit of warmth in it, but I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to put in a dirty degraded color which will suggest the darkness, and if it's not dark enough, then just go back in and add a little bit more while the paint is still wet. I'm using quite a large brush for this. You could quite happily come in with a much smaller brush. Just kind of come and suggest the base of that, and I'm going to do the same with this one while I've got that color, because it works nicely for that part of the painting. I'm going to leave that like so. Alright, I'm going to take a little slurp. Come prepared. unlike the hairdryer. That's good. All right. So where are we? We're moving on at a pace. I think this all works very nicely. I'm going to come in while everything else is just drying up. I'm going to use some of this colour just to mix up a dirty green colour and come back in where I left myself this little bit of a reminder that there are some trees and bits and pieces going on over the back here. Just going to put those in very quickly, very suggestively. Doesn't need to be too much, just an indication that there is more things going on back there than without, as it were. A little bit warmer. Two extra marks. And using some of these negative spaces where you skipped over the colour and you lost a little bit, left a little bit, don't worry, because they actually now serve you quite well, because they break up the different values in there and create something extra that you didn't see first time through. There is a little bit of a darker line through there. I'm just going to suggest that, but then I'm going to take a lot of it off using my finger. People can frown on that, but I don't mind. The brush is good, the finger lasts longer. At least I'm told that. All right. Now then, there's a bit of stuff going on through here, and it's a little bit darker as well. So I'm going to add some more of these colors in, see where we go, add a little bit of raw sienna into that, give me a little bit more yellowish color, and I'm just going to run that through here. It's not going to come all the way down to this top, but it is just going to have a little bit of an influence on one or two shrubs and bushes in the near foreground, like so. And I'm letting that brush skate over, so I've got it turned not fully on the point but on the side, so I'm allowing it to skate where there's not so much paint involved. It skates over like so. And I will come back into, I said that that was a bit of my car park, so I'm going to allow that to be the case. I'm not quite sure how the landscape finishes off over there, but I want to try and put in some of these bluish values of the piles that are along there. So I'm going to clean out this center well, come in with some violet to begin with as a color, but a little bit of indigo to, oh, that's an awful lot of indigo. Right, bit of red back into there. Now we've got a really degraded purple, and this is why it does pay to take your time mixing. And for that I do want to put in a lot more blue. I think I'm going to check that down the side there and see what I'm looking for. And I think also I will change my brush to not quite a rigger. It's smaller than a rigger, but it is a number 2 round sable. And I'm going to use these colors, and I'm just going to see if I can't pick out some of these drawings. Now they do go high, and there are quite a number of them, and they do start well beyond this bank. So let's start putting a few marks in. I should have waited. See how that spread? And I'll leave that to dry off through there. There's enough moisture to mess that up, so I'm going to leave that, reapply that one in a moment, and then carry on once this is dried off. So in the meantime, let's use the same value, and we can start putting in some of these more detailed parts of the boats, and then we can get those almost finished off and along the waterline. And the brush, now those of you who really know me know that I pick up a rigger and forget to put the darn thing down. And I will probably do very much the same here. I wanted to put in that little bit of warmth in there, didn't I? So I mustn't forget that. Nice little line and over the top of the back, and again here just at the water line as it runs through, over the back once more like that. I think works. All right, and let's just put one or two bits of detail in here. I'm not quite sure again what it is I'm looking at, but I'm just going to put in a suggestive few marks that try and indicate the darkness of the cuddy over the back there. Make it a little redder than I've got it there. Just tap a little bit of neat vermilion in there, just a tap, and then spread it with the paint. Let it mix with that violet, and that just deepens that off quite nicely. There will be, I think I need to put a little line in, just a suggestive light line later on. So I'm going to put that in over the back, down the side, and just get that little bit shaped up on the end there at the same time. Okay, there's a lot of dark in this bank which I want to put in, but I'm just going to literally do that for now and just let that skate through. Comes a little bit more suggestive that way. Keeping an eye on the chat in case there's any questions that do come up. I'm just going to put in a bit more of a line through there, on there, and that return, and on the top of this boat as well. There's a little bit over the back, and that comes back in. All right. And there's a lot of dark over beyond it, so I'm going to start literally just isolating this boat with one or two other taps of colour, dark colours, just to suggest that there is dark beyond, and just isolate the boats in that sort of area of darkness, as it were. Like so, and then put that through, and then that through, and we'll start looking at what I'm trying to paint, because I'm not quite sure what that all is over there. It's very hard to work out. There's an awful lot of pilings from the jetty and where the boats are moored up, and I've got to address that very, very soon. But in the meantime, let's just press on with our boats and finishing those off. Okay, and there's a bigger boat up through the back here, and I want to suggest that there is a top to that, like so. This is pretty much dry now, so I'm not going to be too far off doing that. But while I've got this dark colour, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to use it on the inside of this boat here. This is going to have a lovely, and I say that I should have done something else first, I realise. I'm going to come in with some pure blue on this light edge, like so, and down that side, which is the reason I stopped, wasn't it? Because I got that line way out of kilter, so that's where that should come, like so. And then I want to come in with this dark material, which is the inside wall of the dinghy, and I know that that colour blue is going to mingle and bleed. I'm not overly worried about that, so long as I've got a sense of it there, a little sniff of it going through the back there, like so, and that's all I need it to do. Just come in over the top. You can leave some white paper to suggest a highlight. That is perfectly acceptable and very worth doing if you can remember to leave those little areas that will touch and leave a little white line on light sources. There we go. And while I've got this dark in, I'm going to add a little bit of red and orange to that mix and just bring this through on the darkness of this dinghy right in the front. Now it's got a nice waterline dark mark which we can put in, and it's quite ribbed, so it's got a few light areas like so, and one through there, and then it comes up and over the top, and then we almost lose all the detail in this front end, but we get the shape, and that's moreover important than anything else. And this one very similarly, let's just run through, let's just put that dark in and take it all the way down to the waterline. You don't need to run it all the way through the dark. If you want, you can leave little bits like that, and that will certainly indicate that there is more light into the edge of the boat. And while we're doing this, we can come back in with maybe slightly more ultramarine, a little bit darker, and just suggest the reflection while we've got this. And we can actually finish this part off. We don't need to put too much in with regards to more detail on this boat. Just want to put in the outboard motors very quickly, and whatever that is on the back of this particular vessel, and let that settle down like so. A little light, and that'll be all it needs. And there's a little steering wheel, we can just suggest that, and up onto the top, and there's a bit of a clump of a rope through the cleat, and take that off there. And let's come in with a reflection. And this doesn't want to be too detailed. What I do want to do is, I've just seen that it needs a nice little touch of blue, so I'm going to come in with a bit of that cerulean just to run that in like so. It's a little bit on the heavy side, so let's just take that away a little bit. Pick some up with the rigger, actually wouldn't be a bad thought. So let's take that through. A bit more water, soften the effect. Like that, and let that dry out before you come in with the dark. I think would work very, very well. There's a little flush of it through this way as well, just like where the winds picked up and changed the water, but it's also, when it does that, it's picking up a little bit of that morning light, a little bit more cobalt into the mix, but quite a soft mix. That could be considered just a little bit too hard. So what I'm going to do is, before I lose it, I'm going to get my sword. No, I'm not going to get the sword line out. It does pick up and move it around quite nicely. There we are. I'm just going to pick up little bits of it and just suggest that there is a little bit of light. Don't want to get too much water involved, but I want enough to make this move through these lovely pinky colours. So I'm going to be a little bit bolder and come in with a bit more water on this just to take it away. There's, with the sword liner, it's a great brush, but of course when it hasn't got a lot of water into it, it will collapse. Its length of its bristles are so long and soft that it just cannot stand up without the water to hold it up. So you do need to be aware of that. But I think that worked quite nicely. Just a couple of stronger suggestions through there, and let that actually, I know it doesn't in the painting, but just let that take off to the edge. Pick up a little bit more of the blue, just very, very soft touches. I don't know how we're doing for time. This is sort of getting quite a long painting, I do apologize, but if any of you are still there. Hello Jeff, nice to meet you. Well, meet you on here certainly. Thanks for joining. I'm just going to put one or two areas of the blue through here, just one or two stronger marks, and I'm using this. I could quite happily use the rigger. In fact, let's use the rigger because not everyone's got a long sword liner. So let's just use the rigger and just put suggestive one or two marks coming in like so. Now I'm going to leave some of these white areas, light areas as well into the picture. But I'm just suggesting eddies once again, just coming into one of these two or three of these marks that I used last time where they started to bleed, and just reinforcing some of them. And again through here, just pick up one or two areas that very, very lightly, not too much, and just pick them up and develop them just a little bit more than they were before. Smaller marks, little run lines like so, that you get a sense that this water is running away, and little taps like that that give a directional movement to the water at the same time. All these little bits and pieces that help the viewer to see that what's happening, that the water is draining down and around and away. And you can develop this as far as you like, but I won't do it all now. I will just come in with quite a dark colour on this buoy, and because the sun's from that way, then it's predominantly in shade as it faces us. But I will just add in a bit of blue just to break up that dark lump, just to suggest that it's not quite as solid a shape, and then I can lift a little bit of that colour back out like so. And I'm going to use a lot more of the blue and a bit of the cobalt to suggest the dark. Let some of this pick up, don't take it all the way into there, allow some of the little white bits to be quite suggestive, so you've got the reflection but you're allowing the water to break up and suggest that there is ripple and movement. So you don't want a solid reflection, just little bits like so. It may even pick up a little bit there. Now while that is still damp, I said I wanted to put the blue and the dark in, but while I've got a brush that's got a bit of pigment water in it, I'm just going to lift off just a section of that lovely blue like that. I think that looks nice. Maybe tap a little bit of orange into the top before we forget about it. And maybe a little darker in there. That's all it needs. And we've got the buoy. Alright, but the buoy does need to have is sitting in the current, as I said. So what we've got to do is we've got to create an eddy that's coming away from this buoy, and it's going to go all the way down and can sort of join the flow. So you just want to suggest that too, like so. So now there is an eddy behind that buoy, and if you feel that that needs to be a different shape, and I think that the buoy is laying a little bit on its side, you can, if you want to, just change the shape just a little bit of this and extend that like that. It's personal choice, but I think that works quite fine. I think it could just sit in the water a little bit lower than I've allowed for. So let's go in there and we can disturb that shadow or that reflection, but we can just go back in and tidy that up nearer the time. What I want to do is put in another Wendy, is the sword liner sable? Yes, it is, Wendy. It's a lovely brush, gotta say. I really love them. I'm going to come in now with a much darker value of blue, but I'm come all the way down here to suggest that there's a shadow underneath that, and you can see into the inside of the boat. Quite important. Just cement that down like so, and let that come all the way through. Leave any marks of light you want to, and just let that come to nothing. And again, there you can just take that and ease that out so that you get another depth of dark going in there. And in here I could, tempted to go in, I think I'm going to leave it for the minute, but I'm tempted to go in with a bit more colour on there, but I'm going to leave it for now. And this is the whole thing about your painting. It's always going to be judgments. It's always going to be look, see where I need to go with it, and then add or not add accordingly as to what you feel is needed for that painting. So don't always be rushing in to create another value. Look at it and think about it a little while before you go into doing that. Just going to put in a more of a shadow on this boat, give it a bit more presence like so, and ease off that dark, blend it a little bit like that, and I'm going to bring some of that into its reflection like so, and I'm scratching it and just leaving it like that. Doesn't need much more. I will add to it, but it doesn't need too much more than that right now. I'm going to use the same blue, but I'm going to add a little bit more cerulean to that blue, not too much, but a bit more cobalt. And I'm going to come into this boat here, and I want to add further pigments into here to strengthen the side of this as it's going away from the edge and down through that so, and tease that off. Let that just settle down with a little dampness to blend into the other layer. And let that come all the way down and end wherever there. Now while you've got this dark, come in with a bit of a darker value under here, and this will be its reflection. Now I did say that the eddy of water literally runs past there, so it's disturbed all the way through, and it then goes off the back. And also you've got some little taps of color in here which are quite strong, like so, but you can add some blue into that because it's reflecting the blue. So like so, I think works very, very nicely. And just one or two, not solid, just let that background color peek through and create a lovely sense of light and reflection as that runs through the back of that boat. Very similarly on this one, you can put in a nice little shapes of darks that run through right up past the bow of this one, and that actually helps isolate the bow on this boat here. So run that all the way through and into the background there and the bank, and we will develop that a little further later on, but for the meantime that's all we need to do. And let's come back to our boats here that I did put this blue in. Now I'm going to come back and finish that job with mixing up some of this dark again. If it's gone off, then go back in, remix, add that blue, some red, maybe a bit of the orange, and see where you are with that. Check it out. It's quite dark, it's quite moody, maybe a bit touch more red, warm it up, and then come all the way in and replenish that look. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a line in there so there's a bit of water, and I want to bring that reflection down and isolate the edge of this boat here, which is why I changed the drawing, if you remember. And I'm going to deepen the shadow just a tad, just to suit my painting, and then just allow some of these lines to just break away in that sense, like so. Not too much, don't overdo it. I think that's probably as good as it needs, and you can do a very similar thing in here. Let's get that darkness into that section and up into the front of this boat. Wouldn't hurt. Maybe leave a little bit of the line up the side there, and as you know, I've brought this boat further back, so let's just allow one or two of the blue areas to pop into place, and we can just make our reflections in this fashion. And of course there is going to be, there isn't in the photo, but I'm just going to suggest the line coming back into the boat like that, nice and peaceful and gentle. Tap them off. I think that works. I'm happy with that. And one or two areas just in here, just a little bit more. I think we're done with that, but I want to put in that light area that's at the back of that boat and that reflection. So I want to put in here, while this is still wet, just a suggested warm value into there and into here, and marry these two areas together while it's still damp. Gotta be careful I don't overdo it with the dark, because it will create a problem. And let that settle in like so. Nice straight edge would do good if I got it there. There we are. Okay, I'll live with that. So now we did what we was going to do, and we isolated our rudder, and I'm going to put in the arm of the rudder now and leave that alone. That doesn't need any more. There is a little dark patch on the back which I can just suggest, and I can put in a bit of shadowy value of blue into the edge of this now. Now I've seen where it goes, and off into the reflection. Alright, where else have I got to work? I've still got to do this, and I keep I'm not running away from it. It's just that I wanted to see where I needed to be before I committed to it, and just want to put in a bit of a dirty red on this boat here, so we can actually start to see that it is a boat over there. And because what it was, I didn't really leave enough of the shape of that boat to suggest anything really solid. So I'm just going to come back in and play around with that. Now I'm going to come in, as I said, I'm going to use this color of the indigo and of this red, a bit more of the red and a bit more water, and just check that again. It's a little, needs to be a bit warmer, I think. So let's come in with some magenta on this one. Now magenta, for those of you who don't use magenta, is a very good red, but it's the other equivalent to using other than magenta would be using permanent alizarin crimson, and they both work. So I choose magenta, and you know, there's no reason why you should have the other one if you don't wish to. Now I'm just taking a little bit of care, because obviously one wrong move with these and it's not going to look great. And they're not all going to be exactly in the same place, they're not all the same thicknesses, and they have like a couple of areas. There's one sort of runs through here somewhere and comes, it's very hard to see, there's quite a sort of an assortment of boardwalks that run through the back there. And I'm not going to try and get each and every one sorted out, and I'm certainly looking at different values to that. There's a much darker, warmer color than I'm showing on these. Now you can actually try and recreate that. You can, while this is still damp, you can use a bit of water and simply run it down the lead edge of that color you just put in, and you'll start to lift, but you do need to be very careful. You can lift it out. And the other trick to that is that if you've got this color, it will dry lighter. You don't over wet it, or else it will start to spread beyond that line. But while you're doing this, is just look at it, and then when it dries up lighter, there's nothing stopping you going back in and adding a little darker mark to it. Add a little bit of height to these ones, and another one through there. As I say, somebody who lives locally and knows this extremely well will know if I've got this right or wrong. There's actually double posts, so I'm just going to put in a few extra marks like so. Then they get a few less down through here. And there's a lot of dark running up through there, and I guess that's sort of where it's into the mud. Right, so very shady into the water's edge. Don't come all the way down to there, because that is acting as quite a nice little reflection. So I'm going to put some of these marks in. I'm using dry brush. It's really useful to be able to scratch some of these in and be quite loose with the effects that you're putting in. And these have got very long posts that support them. They're coming off of there. There's one, there's another one there, and let's put this one in here and thicken these ones up just a tad, and another mark and another post coming through there. And hopefully now we can start to see this groin is going up through there, and I'm going to put that dark mark in and literally put some taps of these groins in. I guess they're there to protect the erosion to the bank, I'm not too sure about that. And a couple of extra posts that aren't in and visible, and one off the edge there like so. And we're coming to the end a little bit. Well, we're getting closer to the end, not somewhere at the end yet, but we're getting there. And just putting a lot of these marks in like so. And then of course we've got other things going on here, and these groins may be a little bit higher than I've allowed them for, so I'm going to put them in a little tap a bit more, but then they've got this reflection into the water which I want to suggest very, very subtly if I can. and some of these other posts do sort of come into the water, but they're quite soft. So I'm going to add quite a bit of warmth into that, a little bit of orange, make a new mix over here. Don't want it as strong, so I'm going to take this one for instance, and I'm just going to bring it on down in little places like so, and this one maybe like that. And if you feel that they are too heavy, then just take some dampness into the brush and just soften their edge with clean water. Not too wet, but do it before these things dry up, or you're not going to be able to do too much with them moving forward. And I think they just give a subtle look to that edge. Alright, now I'm going to come and do a very similar thing to these ones here that are reflecting into the water, and just bring them down and look to where they finish. They actually finish where this water starts getting agitated. And they also, I look at them and they tend to get a little cooler, a little bluer, which is quite nice, quite interesting. Took one or two marks in there, another one or two through there. They're quite dark at the base, but they then get a little cooler as they come down. And put a little bit of violet to that and take that all the way back to there. Pick up some of that orange in the base, tap and tap a few more marks in. And I want to put one around the front of that boat because it will, oh sorry, the back of that boat. It will help me a lot, because what will happen is that I'm going to put in that shape and then let that come all the way down there. Take some of that out on this side of it so it's not as strong, like so, and let that come through as a more of a reflection. And I need to make sure that I've got a corresponding post in the right position, so that is going to be another one that I'm going to put in just there. It may not be exactly as it is in the picture, but I think that works because there's one behind it, this one here, and a couple more. I think that works nicely. Now I think the remainder of this picture is all about I's and T's. It's all about making sure that you've got everything set up. How long have we been going for, people? Probably hours by the sound of it. I hope not too long. I hope I've not sort of bored and put half of you to sleep. Right, I'm going to put one or two other bits and pieces here that suggest other marks before we sort of end this painting. So you can't actually see what's going on, but I'm just trying to fill up some of that and create the thought of something else that's happening there. Alright, there is something I've missed on here, and that is the little rope that comes down onto that, and of course there is a subtle reflection back. 1.5 hours and you're still awake, Wendy. That's astounding. That's cracking. Okay, well, I'm glad you're all still there. At least I hope all of you are still there. I'll have a roll call in a minute and make sure no one's bunked off and gone and done something else. I'm just putting a little scratchy marks into undulations that you might well see in the dark shapes in this foreground, like so. That's all that needs. Doesn't need too much, just a suggestion of that, and maybe one or two little darker marks in there to give another set of values on what's going on behind. Just the odd tap, doesn't have to be anything too important, and one or two up in here. And I'm going to come in with much darker. I'm going to come in with some cerulean blue. I know it's a very odd blue to use, and I'm going to come in with some ultramarine, then some yellow, and I didn't actually need any of the other former colours because I've just completely obliterated them with these two. So there you go. What do I know? So I'm going to come in now, and this is the strength in this bank, and that's what adds weight to this side of the picture. And it's going to be one of our final areas, and we're going to put a very strong sharp edge to there, and that's going to make that look really bright. But what I haven't done is added in reflections to the piles on their sides, so I better address that very quickly. I'm just going to put in 1 or 2 reflective marks through there and suggestion of reflections through there. Nothing too serious, just make amends for not getting it right. And there's one down the side there which we'll put in 2, and there's one that's beyond the end of the boat like so. Okay, I think there was another one I just put in there. There you go. Alright, so we're pretty much done on that. But I did say also that there was this intriguing little flurry of light that joins some of these together in a breeze of light that runs through there. And hopefully that sort of captures that a little bit. And also beyond this boat, just a little suggestion of the light breeze catching through and under, and then I'm going to top this boat edge like so. There you go. I quite like that. Now let's get back to this bank before it all dries up on me. So again, it's going to be as it is. I'm going to put in some magenta into that mix and come down into the foreshore, the mud that's been exposed on the edge. And I don't want to put, I can't put too much detail in. I just merely need to suggest the dark shapes going into the water there. And then I want to start looking at some of these reflective lights and darks in here. So I'm just going to literally leave some areas and let other areas get painted in, and just suggest the darks and lights in this fashion. And I bring this shadow a little further down at this point and come in and do that I was going to do just now, because I had a bank had a shape to it and I'd missed that. There we go. Hopefully this is okay and it's working. I think it is. Just come up to the top of there and 1 or 2 taps as that's going away. We are almost at the end. You can almost go and get your Saturday lunch, because I'm sure it's getting close to, oh, it's gone 12:10. Right, okay, I'm quite happy with the way that looks, and if I want to soften any of that, just go back in. While this is why I use £300, because if you use a cheaper paper, and I mean cheaper paper doesn't really work that well anyway. Cheaper paper doesn't have the quality in its makeup, and I'm just going to talk to you while I do this waterline. I want to be a little careful with that. Yes, and if you use lightweight paper, not necessarily cheaper paper, but lightweight paper, it doesn't hold the moisture as long within its fibers as a heavyweight paper does. So with heavyweight paper such as £300 paper, don't need to go any higher than that. I mean, you can go right up to £600 if you, but that's like, you know, you could sort of sleep on that. It's like a board. But certainly when it comes to papers, then it's worth sort of using a heavier weight one if you can. It's not cheap. I think you'll pay, I think this works out about £3.50, £3.70 a sheet for this sort of size in this sort of weight, but it's worth buying it. I'm going to put the rubber running edge to that. A little bit heavy if I'm honest, but not the end of the day, not the end of the world. And and I am going to put in a bit more of a value of violet for the blue. Just going to come back in and give a little bit more presence to the stern shape, like so. Not too much, but it does make a little difference. There you go, that's all it needed. And a little flush, I think, in there would look good. Not too much. And I'm going to start doing this part here, and that will be pretty much sorted out. A bit of darker value there. And start one or two bits. There's a little cleat on the top, a little anchor cleat, and the rope goes over the top and obviously down into the boat. You can't see too much, but I'm going to put in a very dark but violet dark into another layer into this part of the boat here. Just felt that it needed that extra little oomph. Like so. Okay, that's all that wants now. I think that's done. I'm going to leave it at that. There's one or two little lines on through there. I've got to do this part, haven't I? So I'm going to come back in now. I'm going to put in quite a bit of violet, and it's quite a shadowy piece of mud. I want to put that in like so. There's a bit too much orange in there, so I'm going to definitely come back with some violet. Could have used the bigger brush for this part, but it's what I had in my hand, so I'm not too worried. I just want to suggest a few of the sort of muddy areas that are in here. Just I've added more than there is, as I said to you at the beginning. I'm just going to add in one or two taps that suggest that there is the water's ebbing away and it's showing sort of bits of mud and stuff in the water as it goes round the edge of the bank. Maybe add some orange into that, as give that a bit of a warmer influence on some of the lead edges of the mud. Just picking up a bit of that morning light maybe. I don't think that's too shabby, quite like that, that's good. I would like a real sort of bluish violet influence on this lead edge, catching some light, and that works nicely then against the warms of the peachy colours that are in the water at the foreground at this point. But I'm not going to put too much into it. I don't need to put too much into it. It's merely a suggestion that there is something here. And you can, while you've got it, like there's a piece of wood sticking out there. I don't propose to use the wood, or because they're the oars from a little inflatable, but I'm going to use the idea, and I'm going to just suggest a bit of mud that's here, and it's a bit of a lead-in line, very useful technique, just to point towards the boat. It's very, very suggestive, but it does point to keeping the people in. It's like a little barrier to stop people going out of your picture. But I can't really do the same thing over this side. I'm not going to do that, but I think that works, and I think it doesn't need any more than that at all. Okay, so what have I forgotten? There's bound to be something. Thanks, Lynn, appreciate that. I do want to put in some highlights, so I'm going to go and find my gouache any moment now. God knows where I put it. I keep moving things, and hopefully I can find it. It's not looking that good. I don't know where I put it. But I would like to use some gouache if I can. Bear with me. It might take a couple of minutes, but I have got some somewhere. All right, so this is the last bit. I think I'm going to use the tip of the brush. I don't normally go and make a color of it. I just take bits out like the end of the brush here. If I want to have a warmer influence to it, I'll put a little bit on the side, add maybe a little bit of yellow to that mix, but then I will add a lot more white to it. I want it to be quite strong. I just want to put in a little bit of a highlight around there and a little bit of light through there. A bit stronger, I think that could be nice. And again on the top of the cleat, putting a little bit of light there like that. Doesn't want too much, there's quite a bit more on the side of this one. I'm going to put that in, and then a corresponding reflection. It doesn't want too much, never does. It's just some people just overdo these things, and they just get a little bit carried away with the amount of reflection that they put in. Just to highlight the back of this stern on this one, just a little bit of light there and down the side there. I think that works. Maybe a tap or two on the top of this boat here, and a suggestion of light that I missed out on that cuddy and over the top, just to put in one or two stray pieces. And let's just put in maybe something that's going on back up here on the side, and maybe something on the top of this boat, just to give it a bit more of a look, like so. We're pretty much there, people. Maybe a little bit on the back of this one, and on the top, just to where there's a cleat back there, and a little bit on the outboard maybe. On top of the cleat there, a bit too much, take some of that away. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. Well, there's always something that you can do to make it better, but I haven't actually finished off, I know I haven't done, is the reflection underneath this boat. So let's just quickly address that, and then we can pretty much say we're done. I'm going to come in with a lot of blue violet in there, so I'm going to use quite a bit of the violet ultramarine, but I'm going to use also some blues that is more pure ultramarine and cobalt into there as well. So I don't want to lose all the blue, but I want it quite dark in places. I want to reflect that coming under there and along this back edge, and then pick it out a bit carefully. There I want to suggest that there is an angle to that too, so I don't want to go charging in and muck that up. Going to come in with some more cobalt, suggest the strength of blue, and then I'm going to start doing what I did with all the other bits and pieces, just come off maybe with a bit more orange into there, and just there you go, that's nice, I like that. And just break them up as they come away and give the boat the depth of the stern that should be in reflection. And of course you've got this area in here which needs to come on a lot higher, so the reflection with that will start traveling a lot closer to you than other parts. Let's come in here with some of this. And more importantly, let's get this right through here, because there's a lot of dark at this point, and I haven't allowed for that, but it sort of builds up as it comes towards the bow. So there's a lot more to be seen here than I first gave it a thought for. And that's actually darker there. You see what I mean about sort of the dark and the light situation of the reflection. If you look at that, this part does appear to be a bit lighter than other bits, so it does work out that the values get a lot closer together. Okay, and you can extend some of these off and they sort of come around into some of these ripples if you wish to. It depends on how much detail you really want to put into that. Doesn't need to be too much, but I think you can just suggest one or two as they lead around the ripples and coming on and into the reflection as a whole, which I think is just a nice little touch to it to finish it off. And what I need to do now is to warm this up tremendously fast. It's going to put in a darker sort of ripple but warm under here, and still maintaining that little bit of light edge that I put in with the gouache. I may have to go back in with a bit more gouache and suggest that, because I think it's not quite in the right place. I'm going to put that in there like so, dampen that off very, very quickly, moving on with that, and then come back in with a warm color into there. A bit quicker. I'm going to use a bit of cadmium red this time instead of the vermilion. It's a little bit more strength to it because it is an opaque color, so it will have a bit more grunt. And run that through like so, and let that run off. So that's almost suggesting that that boat's got that lovely light tip to it, and it's got to have a little bit of yellowish next to it, and leave it like that. Leave the strength in it. And then once that's done, then just literally pick up the gouache one last time, just tap in one or two of these bright marks. Oh, look at that. See, it does pay to wait. Alright, I'm just going to blot that very quickly. It's not lost because all it's done is it's just given it a nice, well, actually it's probably worked quite well for it, so I'm just going to soften the edge there and let that dry up. And if you just bear with me while we just conclude on this very, very quickly. But I hope you've enjoyed this anyway. I hope you've enjoyed the fact that brilliant, Paul, thank you for sharing with us this Saturday morning. Lynn, thank you very much. Hey up, that's looking up smashing. Cheers, Paul, appreciate your comment and coming in on that. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a little bit nerve-wracking to do this, my very, very first ever live stream for you, but I really do hope that you have enjoyed yourselves watching this. I have enjoyed painting it. Now then, as for future live streams, I do plan on doing a live stream on a Tuesday morning or a Tuesday evening, so let me know in the comments whether you fancy a morning one or an evening one in future. I'm more than happy to do that on live stream for YouTube, but it will come from a Sunday to a Tuesday, I think. And also on my Patreon channel, there's a tier there which helps you have direct contact with me, where I can work with you with your particular painting issues and needs, and you can get involved with that and have a bit of fun with that. And I connect with you through the one of the online platforms. I forget, it's one of the oh god, the meeting program, I forget what it's called now, but lots of people use it, and so there is that one, and I can connect with you on that. And also that if you become a patron, whether it's a $5 patron all the way up, it doesn't matter what level, but with that you get a second stream every week to look at, and for the $10 and more they get it as it happens. For the $5, they get to see the recorded version, but they nevertheless get to see the extra live stream, and that will always happen on a, what day is all that happening on? I think that's on a Friday. I think I said Friday morning. But yes, these dates and days can be adjusted to best suit people. You can't do Tuesdays evenings. Okay, so it looks like it'll be a Tuesday morning, which is what I'd set out to do anyway. So I'm looking at Tuesday morning for YouTube, and then my Patreon channel will get their own exclusive live stream demonstration, which will be on a Friday or a Thursday. I think it's Friday, I think. I'll post it. Post it out there. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, look out for those, but have a look at Patreon, because it is a great way of seeing tons more content that I'm constantly putting out there and adding to weekly, and for everybody to enjoy. And you also become part of my Patreon community group on Facebook, which is a private page that you can get involved with, where I can help you further with your work, answer questions, and all my patrons can interact with each other. So yeah, yeah, thanks very much for that, Wendy. Wendy's a patron, and it's great, and I enjoy my interaction with those people, with all my patrons. Anyway, in the short term, I'm just gonna finish off by doing one or two little bits and tweaks here. I'll let the stream run for a few more minutes, just in case anyone's got any other comments they wish to put in. I don't want to stop it straight away, but thank you for joining me. I do hope that next Tuesday morning you will join me on YouTube at very least, and spread the word, like and add comments, do whatever you want to do, and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe to it too. It does help me build this channel. There's a lot of work goes into making films for you and also doing these streams, and it's a great way of knowing that people are enjoying it, and the Patreon is a great way to help me finance it. So thanks guys, thanks for watching. Hope it didn't put you all to bed, and yeah, crack on and have a go at this yourself. Bye bye for now. Thanks for watching. James, if you're still there, I'm sorry I didn't see this, but thank you for joining the live stream. Bexhill West, thanks ever so much for that. And Sando, sorry I didn't see your comment come in either. So Sando Show, Bexley West, thanks for supporting the channel, along with everybody else who has supported this live stream today. Thanks ever so much, guys. I'm going to sign off now. I'm getting very dry in the throat, and I'm going to go and have some munch. Stay safe, everybody, in this time. I know you hear it a lot, but please, everybody, stay safe and be careful out there. Keep your distance and observe all the rules, and hopefully we'll all get through this. in the short term, keep painting as well. Bye bye.